Shalom, I'm David, and today I'll be reading from Deuteronomy, chapters 32, 33, and 34. Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak. Let the earth hear the words of my mouth. May my teaching trickle like rain, my speech distill like dew, like gentle rain on new grass, like showers on tender plants. For I will proclaim Adonai's name, ascribe greatness to our God, the rock. Blameless is his work. Indeed, all his ways are just. God of faithfulness without iniquity, righteous and upright is he. Did it corrupt him? No. The blemish is his children's, a generation crooked and twisted. Is this how you pay back Adonai, O foolish, unwise people? Isn't he your father who ransomed you? He made you and established you. Remember the days of antiquity. Understand the years across generations. Ask your father, and he will tell you, your elders, and they will say to you. When Elyon gave nations their heritage, when he separated the sons of man, he set boundaries for the people by the number of Bnei Israel. But Adonai's portion is his people. Jacob is the share of his inheritance. He found him in the wilderness land, in the void of a howling waste. He surrounded him, cared for him, guarded him as the pupil of his eye. As an eagle stirs up its nest, hovers over its young, he spreads his wings, catches him, lifts him up on his pinions. Adonai alone guided him. There was no foreign god with him. He made him mount the heights of the land, so he ate the produce of the field. He suckled him with honey from a rock, with oil from a flinty boulder, butter of cattle and milk of a flock, with fat of lambs, rams of the Bashan, and he-goats, with fat of the kidneys of wheat, and blood of grapes you drank. But Jeshurun grew fat and kicked. You got fat, you grew thick, you gorged. He forsook God who made him. He mocked the rock of his salvation. They made him jealous with strangers, with abominations they angered him. They sacrificed to demons, a non-God, gods they had not known, to new ones who came in lately, ones your fathers had not dreaded. The rock who birthed you, you ignored. You forgot God who brought you forth. Adonai saw, and he spurned his sons and his daughters out of vexation. He said, I will hide my face from them. I want to see their hereafter. For they are an upside-down generation, children with no faithfulness in them. They made me jealous with a non-God. They vexed me with airy idols. So I will make them jealous with a non-people. With a foolish nation I will vex them. For fire has ignited in my nostrils. It will burn to Sheol beneath, devour the earth and her produce, and scorch the foundations of mountains. I will heap calamities upon them. With my arrows I will finish them. Wasted by famine, ravaged by plague, and pestilence so bitter, fangs of beasts I'll let loose on them, with venom of creepers in the dust. Outside the sword deals death, and inside terror, to both young men and young women. Infants with men of gray hair, I would have said, I will hack them to pieces, make the memory of them cease from mankind, except I dread the taunt of the enemy, lest their foes might misconstrue, lest they say, our hand is held high, and Adonai has not done all this. For they are a nation lacking counsel. Among them there is no understanding. If they were wise, they would discern this. They would understand their hereafter. How can one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight, unless their rock had sold them and Adonai handed them over? Surely their rock is not like our rock, as even our enemies judge. For their vine is from the vine of Sodom, and from the terraces of Gomorrah. Its grapes are grapes of poison, bitter clusters on it. Venom of serpents is their wine, poison of vipers so cruel. Is it not stored up with me, sealed up in my treasuries? Vengeance is mine, and payback, for the time when their foot staggers. Surely their day of disaster is near. What is prepared rushes on them. For Adonai will judge his people. For his servants he will relent when he sees that strength is gone and no one is left, slave or free. He will say, where are their gods? The rock they took refuge in. Who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their libation? Let them rise up and help you and be a shelter over you. See now that I am he. There are no other gods beside me. I bring death and give life. I have wounded, but I will heal, and none can rescue from my hand. Yes, I lift my hand up to heaven and say, as I myself live forever, when I sharpen my lightning sword, and my hand seizes it in judgment, I will return vengeance on my foes, and those who hate me I will pay back. I will make my arrows drunk from blood, and my sword will devour flesh. The blood of the slain and the captive, the head of the leaders of the enemy. Make his people rejoice, O nations, for he will avenge the blood of his servants. He will return vengeance on his foes and atone for the land of his people. Then Moses came and spoke all the words of this song in the ears of the people, he and Joshua son of Nun. When Moses finished speaking all these words to all Israel, he said to them, put in your hearts all the words that I call as a witness against you today, that you may command your children to keep and do all the words of this Torah. For it is not an empty thing for you, because it is your life. By this word you will prolong your days on the land which you are crossing over the Jordan to possess. On that very day Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, go up this mountain of the Avarim, Mount Nebo, which is in the land of Moab, facing Jericho, and see the land of Canaan, which I am given to Bnei Israel as a possession. On the mountain that you are ascending, there be gathered to your people, as Aaron your brother died on Mount Hor, and was gathered to his people, because you both broke faith with me among Bnei Israel at the waters of Meribah Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin, because you did not treat me as holy in the midst of Bnei Israel. For you will see the land from afar, but you will not enter there, into the land that I am giving to Bnei Israel. Chapter 33. This is the blessing with which Moses the man of God blessed Bnei Israel before his death. He said, Adonai came from Sinai and dawned on Bnei Israel from Seir. He shone forth from Mount Paran, and he came from the holy myriads, blazing fire for them from his right hand. Indeed, a lover of peoples is he. All his kedoshim are in his hand. They followed in your steps, each receiving your words. Torah Moses commanded us, a heritage for the community of Jacob. He became king in Jeshurun, when the heads of the people gathered, all the tribes of Israel together. Let Reuben live and not die, though his people become few. Now this is for Judah, he said. Hear, Adonai, the voice of Judah. Bring him to his people. His hands contended for him. So you will be a help against his foes. For Levi, he said, let your Thummim and Urim be with your pious man. You tested him at Massah. You strive with him at the waters of Meribah. He said of his father and mother, I have not seen them, nor did he acknowledge his brothers or recognize his children. For they observed your word and kept your covenant. They will teach Jacob your judgments and Israel your Torah. They will put incense in your nose and whole burnt offerings on your altar. Adonai bless his resources, Find favor in the work of his hands. Crush the loins of those who rise against him and hate him, so they do not rise again. For Benjamin, he said, the beloved of Adonai rests securely beside him. He shields him all day long. Between his shoulders he rests. For Joseph, he said, may his land be blessed by Adonai with heavenly bounty from the dew and from the deep lying beneath, and with the bounty of the sun's produce and the month's yield, and with the best from the ancient mountains, and the bounty of the everlasting hills, with earth's bounty in all its fullness, and the favor of the one dwelling in the bush. May it come on Joseph's head, on the crown of the prince among his brothers. The firstborn ox, majesty is his. His horns are the horns of the wild ox. With them he gores peoples all at once to the ends of the earth. They are the myriads of Ephraim, they are the thousands of Manasseh. For Zebulun, he said, rejoice, Zebulun, in your going out, and Issachar in your tents. Peoples they call to the mountain, there they offer righteous sacrifices. For they suckle the abundance of the seas and the hidden treasures of the sand. For Gad, he said, blessed is the one who enlarges Gad. Like a lion he crouches and tears off an arm, or even the crown of a head. He chose the best for himself, for there a marked portion was reserved. He came with the heads of the people. He carried out Adonai's justice and his judgments for Israel. For Dan, he said, Dan is a lion's cub, leaping out of the Bashan. For Naphtali, he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor, and full of the blessing of Adonai, possess the sea and the south. For Asher, he said, most blessed of sons is Asher. May he be the favorite of his brothers, and may he dip his foot in oil. The bolts of your gates will be iron and bronze. As your days, so will your strength be. There is none like God, Jeshurun, riding through the heavens to your aid, and through the skies in his majesty. A refuge is the ancient God, and underneath are everlasting arms. He drove out the enemy before you and said, destroy. So Israel rests in safety, untroubled as Jacob's fountain, in a land of grain and new wine. Yes, his heavens drip dew. Happy are you, O Israel. Who is like you? A people saved by Adonai, the shield of your help, and the sword of your triumph. Your enemies will cower before you, and you will trample on their backs. Chapter 34. Then Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, which is opposite Jericho. Adonai showed him all the land, Gilead to Dan, and all of Naphtali, the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah as far as the western sea, the Negev, and the plain of the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees, as far as Zoar. Then Adonai said to him, this is the land that I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give it to your seed. I let you see it with your eyes, but you will not cross over there. So Moses, the servant of Adonai, died there in the land of Moab, as was from the mouth of Adonai. Then he buried him in the valley in the land of Moab, opposite Beth Peor, but no one knows of his burial place to this day. Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eye was not dim, nor his vigor gone. Bnei Yisrael wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days. Then the days of weeping, mourning for Moses were ended. Now Joshua son of Nun was full of the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands on him. So Bnei Yisrael listened to him and did just as Adonai had commanded Moses. There was not risen again a prophet in Israel like Moses, whom Adonai knew face to face. With all the signs and wonders Adonai sent him to do in the land of Egypt, to Pharaoh, all his servants, and all his land, by the strong hand and great awe that Moses did in the sight of all Israel.